Should I just put the...
Okay. So hi Hemant, how are you?
Hey, I'm good here. So should I put the presentation on?
Yeah, you can start with your presentation right now.
Okay.
Guys, is my audio clear right now? Is everyone able to hear right now?
Yes, we are able to hear.
Yes, yes.
All good? I request everyone to mute their audio so that it will be much more clearer. Yeah, Hemant, you can start here.
Yeah, so can you see on the screen the slide?
No, it's not visible right now.
It's not visible.
Yes. Loading. Perfect.
Can you see?
Yeah, it's loading, Hemant.
Okay, just... Is it on?
Not on. Can you check it one more time?
You can't see?
No.
Perfect.
No, I can't see.
I just... Okay, let me start again.
Okay.
Is it on?
No, it's not. It come out. Can you check it one more time?
Sorry.
It's not yet on. Your presentation is not. Yeah, it's loading. Yeah. Now it's okay.
It's on?
Yeah, it's on. It's on.
You can see the first slide, right?
Yes, I can see.
This is the first slide?
Okay, yeah. You can start here.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you, everyone. I think I thank you, Karthik, as well, for organizing this talk, this webinar.
Yeah.
I think it all started with, I think you wanted to climb Kilimanjaro during the pandemic, right? And then let's say, okay, there'll be lots of people who might be wanting to go to Kilimanjaro or Tanzania, maybe when this pandemic is over. So what do they need to do when they do that? So that's how it all began. And of course, a big thank you to everyone of you who are joining in. Many of you have joined at some ungodly hour at your place. Thank you so much. I just want to start the brief intro about Rustic Travel and what we do, just a brief one, and then we will sort of move on to the presentation. I think you still see the presentation, right?
No, it's gone, Hemant. Can you do it one more time? You can present it one more time. You keep talking, it's okay.
Okay. So yeah, so Rustic Travel is basically, just let me know when the presentation comes in. So
Okay.
Rustic Travel is basically 5 years old now, and basically it started by a bunch of folks, all of us who've been in the corporate sector for quite a while now, and then we thought, okay, hey, let's start following what we love doing, which is traveling, and that's how it all began. And in this 5 years, we've been doing a lot of things. So basically, Rustic Travel is mainly an activity-based travel experience curator. We curate travel experiences in India, abroad. It ranges along, adventure, very thematic like culture, culinary, so on and so forth. So within adventure, there's a lot of trekking, climbing, diving, cycling, so on and so forth. So we cover the whole range. And in this 5 years, we've been doing a lot of treks, expeditions, and Kilimanjaro we have done 2 expeditions there, one in 2016 and one in 18. We'll talk about that as well. Apart from that, we also do quite a bit of tours, local tours, walking tours in and around Bangalore and other parts of India as well. And we've just started working on getaways as well. So so if you guys want to get out of the city, so in a safe way, we sort of organize that as well. So anyway, so this is about Rustic Travel. You can always go to our website and know more about it, or reach out to us directly. Now, coming to Kilimanjaro. Karthik, is the presentation live now?
I can see your first image of showing Kilimanjaro, climbing Kilimanjaro, where altitude and altitude. I can see that.
Okay.
It's clear.
Is that the only thing you see?
Yeah, that's only.
All right. Okay. So, okay. So we'll start with the presentation, and it's going to be not in terms of content, just these 3 things. Within that, there are a lot to talk about, and obviously, if you have questions, we can cover this now, or after the hour is over as well. So I'm going to start with few interesting facts about Kilimanjaro, then talk out more about the climb, why one should do it, when and how, and while traveling there, what all you should need to know and do before doing that. There's a whole laundry list actually to do that. So let's start with the name. Now, the Kilimanjaro. Now, does anyone have any idea how did Kilimanjaro name came about? Anyone? I mean, you can just send a chat message or something if you know. Or what does name Kilimanjaro mean? Anyone? No? Okay. So, well, you're not alone in that aspect. Actually,
Kili means mountains. If I'm not wrong.
sorry, go ahead.
Kili means mountains or something like that.
Yeah, so there are a lot of version around that in terms of how to interpret Kilimanjaro. One sec.
Mountain of Moon. That's what Mohan has come up with.
Mountain of
Moon.
Moon. Okay. So basically, when the Europeans came there in the 18th, 19th century, in around mid 18th, around 1850s, 1860s, they named it Kilimanjaro, basically. Now, Kili mainly means mountain in Swahili. One dialect of Swahili. Swahili has many dialects again. And the other Manjaro means snow in a different dialect altogether. So that is one version of it. There's another version which is a Chaga phrase, basically. It's again a local dialect, which the interpretation of the Europeans is basically we failed to climb it. So that is the other interpretation. I think I'm facing some problem with the. Okay. Now, The second interesting fact is it's one of the 7 summits. I think that's another reason to climb it, and a lot of people do that. And it's supposed to be one of the easiest climbs when compared to the others. When you say easy, it's mainly from the point of view that it's not technical. It's hikeable, so one can actually just walk up. You don't need ropes, you don't need crampons, you don't need mountain boots or heavy gear to do that. So from that aspect, it's very easy to do that. Obviously, the second other easiest one is the one in Australia, which is again just a walk up, which I did last year, which anybody can do. So, but having said that, Kilimanjaro is almost 6,000 meters. So it's not that easy from an altitude perspective. And a lot of people actually are not able to do, or get acclimatized to high altitude and are not able to climb it. So that is one other aspect. It becomes very cold out there, so one has to adapt to that. So I'm going to talk more about that as we go along that path. The next fact is obviously not just the highest mountain in Africa, it's also the tallest freestanding mountain. Now, what is the difference between freestanding and non-freestanding? So, for example, Mount Everest is in a range. It's in the Himalayan range. K2 is in Karakoram range. Whereas Karakoram is formed by volcanic eruptions, and it's a freestanding mountain. It's not part of any other range. So that's where it's the tallest freestanding mountain in the entire world. So if you actually go to the 7 summits, Mount Elbrus, which is the highest mountain in Europe, which is in Russia, is another freestanding mountain, which is also a volcanic, formed out of volcanic eruptions. Another fact is, and which is interesting while traveling there, is that it's located on the equator. Actually, around 205 miles away from the equator, but it's very much there. And it was believed that it was rather people sort of asked this question: how come it's so close to the equator, yet it has snow and ice on the on the peak? So obviously, it's because the glaciers grow during Earth's ice ages and shrink and regrow again. So it's the glacier phenomenon is a bit different from how the sun puts its rays directly or indirectly on equator. So that was the logic behind it. So while traveling to let's say climb Kilimanjaro, I remember in 2018, which we did. We went to Kenya first, did the safari, went to the equator, and then flew into Tanzania and climbed Kilimanjaro. So, in your travel plans, if you're planning to do Kilimanjaro, you can cover all of these, things which geographically very interesting to sort of, discover and, be there while you're sort of doing that. So that is another interesting fact about Kilimanjaro. So there are 3 volcanic cones which form Kilimanjaro. These are Mawenzi, Kibo, and Shira. These are very, at these heights, as you can see from the slide. Shira has, it's sort of many years ago actually, has just collapsed. So you can't see that cone there. Mawenzi is a craggy mountain. It's sort of a lot of crags and very interesting kind of a structure. In fact, it looks very similar to if you're a follower of Lord of the Rings, if you're in Mordor. So a lot of features which look similar to the geographical feature which you see in that movie. So Mawenzi is like that. And of course, Kibo is the highest point, and where you see the glaciers and a lot of snow as well. which is there on Kilimanjaro. Well, so another fun fact, well, maybe not fun for people who are climbing, that it could erupt again sometime. Now, uh, uh, as I just mentioned that uh, there are three craters out there, Mavenzi, Shira, and Kibo. So Shira and Mavenzi are actually extinct volcanoes, but Kibo is dormant. So it could, some 200 years ago, I mean, a couple of centuries ago, there was some volcanic activity that happened. And though scientists, geologists claim that, I mean, it's almost as good as dead, but it is still classified as a dormant uh, volcanic cone. So there's a lot of snow on Kilimanjaro, something which, if I remember from 2016, when we were climbing up, and VG, who's here as well, who could, tell that also, we didn't see single snow during that time. That was in 2016 October. But when I went back again in 2018, that was around September, first week of September or so, it was, I mean, huge ice formations had formed, and one had to walk through ice and snow to reach the top. And in fact, during the same year, 2018, few months ago, I mean, one was required to have, special, obviously have special boots and crampons or micro spikes to wear to climb, walk through that kind of snow. So it's strange. Within a couple of years, I mean, 2018 was, they say, maybe a freak year because it snowed quite a bit. Having said that, quite a bit is melting as we speak. In the ice cap is melting really, really fast. In fact, in around 5 million trees were planted around the base of the mountain in 2008 to sort of, curb the effects of global warming, because that's supposed to be the reason why the snow is melting. And so I think if you're thinking about climbing Kilimanjaro, it's, I think, the better it is to do it as soon as possible before, everything melts away. Okay, I'm going to speak about the climb. How is it different from other, mountains as well? In my experience of climbing and trekking across altitudes and across mountains, I think the experience in Kilimanjaro was really unique. I think one was that almost every other day, you would see a different geographical zone, different vegetation altogether. I mean, if you look at this slide, there are actually 5 such ecological zones which exist in the same mountain, and again based on the altitude. The first, obviously, is the cultivated zone or bushland. So it's actually at the lowest part where actually people do farming and grow whatever vegetables or various crops, which is called the bushland. The actual trek starts from the rainforest zone. So basically, when you land in a place called Moshi, Moshi is a small town, which is actually the gateway to the Kilimanjaro climb. From Moshi, which is around 1800 meters or so, you're driven to a place. That's where the walk starts. So this zone, which is around 1800 to 2800 meters, is like a rainforest. It's lush green. It has lush green vegetation, and it rains quite a bit. I mean, if you're lucky, you may avoid that, but in my second time in 2018, it had rained quite a bit while we were walking. So this is the rainforest zone. As you go to the next a bit higher, so which will be typically your day 3, day 4, depending on which route you're taking, how many days you're going to take, is actually a moorland zone, around 2,800 to 4,000 meters. Again, this is a zone, I mean, you will feel like you're walking on the sets of Lord of the Rings. It's exactly like that. You know, it's completely dry, it's desert, desert land. And if you see the slide, the picture on the right, you see those kind of weird vegetation as well, which is really interesting. Then comes the Alpine Desert Zone, which is an extension of the moorland zone. Here, there's hardly any vegetation. It's just complete dry land. In fact, the water also, so up till the moorland, there's some water one could get. Kilimanjaro has a system of rivers and streams flowing, in fact. So it basically, whatever the rainwater is collected, it sort of flows. So all the trekkers have access to that. But 4,000 meter onwards, that dries up. So actually, the porters carry water all the way from 4,000 meters to the next camp, which is around 4,500. This is the last camp, 4,500 meters. So in this Alpine Desert Zone, there's no water also. And finally, the Arctic Zone. This is a photo which I took in 2018. I mean, you can look at the kind of ice and snow there. I mean, in 2016, the same place was completely barren. So it again depends how, you know, depending on which year it is, and if it snowed quite a bit, this is what you'll get.
Hemant, your sound is not audible.
Sorry?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I can hear you.
Okay, I hope you're able to hear whatever said before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. Now, well, this is around 25 to 30,000 people attempt every year, and around 50% of them fail. It's, well, as I said earlier, it's an easy climb, but again, it's that's what people think, and they go unprepared, mainly unprepared from the point of view of the altitude, and that's where they fail. So the main, so I'll talk about the routes and in some time. Obviously, there are many routes. Some people try to do in 5 days. Some people try to do it in 8 days. Obviously, the lesser duration routes have higher probability of failing, and that's what happens. In terms of deaths, okay, I mean, people do die every year. I mean, maybe out of 5 to 10 people. But these are extreme cases, and mainly due to high altitude sickness. That's what people do. But having said that, Kilimanjaro has excellent facilities in terms of evacuation and rescue. And whoever you're going with, whoever your guide is or expedition company who are taking with you, most of them have all those protocols in place, in terms of what will, you do if, let's say, you have high altitude sickness. So there are oxygen cylinders, there's chopper rescue, and it's very well connected through roads at some of the points. Obviously, at some points, when you go higher, you have to walk back to the road. But up till day 3 or so, I mean, it's connected to the road. So you can walk a bit, and a rescue car could pick you up and take you to the hotel, and where you'll be taken care of. So it's very well organized, the entire system out there, and that's the reason a lot of people come there as well. But still, I mean, it's not as easy as some people say, or as I was saying. still it's difficult to succeed. It's after all, it's almost 6,000 meters. So, but having said that, as I said, there are other 50% who have made it. These are some pictures which I took. The top one left is from 2016, and the one on the right is from 2018. This photo on the bottom left is with, I met him in 2018. He's a 70-year-old Russian named Vyacheslav. So, I mean, you will see a lot of people out there, young, old, who have, and who are, who successfully climb it. In fact, the youngest person apparently to climb Kilimanjaro is a guy, American named Coalton Tanner, who summited when he was 6 years old. So, and youngest girl is also 6-year-old to climb it, Ashley Mandrick. Although the minimum age for climbing Kilimanjaro is 10 years, but authorities, based on certain, make some exceptions, and children might go as well. Of course, they are the oldest person to climb Kilimanjaro is around 81 years old. No, sorry, 88 years old. Sorry, so that's a world record as well. And then there are people who do fast ascents and descents of Kilimanjaro. Like the world record of fastest ascent and descent is around 6 hours 42 minutes from the base. So so it's amazing what people are doing these days.
Even that ascent is actually pretty fast. 6 hours and all is like you would have ran all the way from the bottom to the top, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I remember on the summit night, typically it takes 7 hours to 9 hours to go up, and another 3-4 hours to come down. And it's not that easy. You're climbing in the night, and these guys just run up and do this. And then there's records for unaided descent. Basically, the climbers carry their own food, water, and clothing. Somebody has done 9 hours, 19 minutes, and so on. So it's crazy. In fact, I was when I was there. So we have this guide living. I'm not too sure if he's logged in because he said he will. So he was the guide, the local guide who climbed with us, who guided us both the times. A good friend as well. He was telling me when he was getting prepared for. So they had a very stringent training for the guides to become a guide. They had a very stringent training program to do that, and they had to climb Kilimanjaro within 1 to 2 days kind of a span. What we do in, let's say, 6 to 8 days, they had to do it in a couple of days. So so all the guides there are extremely fit, and they know all the protocols. They are given all the training in terms somebody gets sick, in terms of somebody somebody needs to be taken care of or evacuated or helped. So they are extremely knowledgeable, they're extremely fit, and they have gone through this stringent program. So Tanzania tourism, they do this with all the guides out there. So it's really, you'll be in safe hands actually if you are sort of going there. I felt much safer than, let's say, I felt in let's say other expedition, let's say in Himalayas. Not that the guides are not great there, but here it's extremely well taken care of. Great. So these are the 10 interesting facts which I had. Let me just quickly talk about the climb in terms of why, when, and how. Uh, so I think lot of over the last 4 5 years, a lot of people have, a lot of folks have approached us, me, and talked about climbing Kilimanjaro. Many I felt had the right reasons. Many I felt had the wrong reason. I said no to them that no, we can't take you. So I think it's very important. Why do you want to climb it? Because it's not easy, even though people say it. Uh, so one has to be, in terms of motivation, one has to be very clear why one wants to do it. So, I've listed down a few reasons, the right reasons, what we think. One, you should love mountains, trekking, climbing. Two, it should, it's a personal challenge for you. Three, for those climbers or trekkers, I think it's a great first climb. So somebody who has been trekking for quite some time and they want to climb a mountain, I think this is a good first mountain to climb. And a first good 6,000 meters mountain to climb. 6,000 meters in mountain climbing, it's sort of a milestone because of mainly of altitude. Obviously, the oxygen levels are really low at that point. But you have to climb it without a cylinder. So I think it's a great first climb, especially for 6,000-meter mountain, because it's not technical as well. There are no ropes, no crampons, ice axe required here. Another part is you're in East Africa, you're in Africa. It's an amazing continent. It's just amazing. You can couple it with all your travels there. Uh, so these I feel are the right reasons. The wrong reasons I feel like a lot of people have reached out because they have this on the bucket list, which is there's nothing wrong with that, but they do not have any trekking or camping experience. Many folks who have approached where Kilimanjaro is their first trek, I think that's a complete no-no. One should have had some kind of experience in trekking. One should have camped before because camping here is a totally different experience. I mean, it's very cold in the nights, and it gets colder as you go along. As you climb higher. Then there are other reasons. There are people who want to climb it at any cost, just to sort of add it to your achievements. I think it's again, I feel it's not the right reason to do that. And there are a lot of people who are unfit. They they think that trekking here would help them lose weight. Clearly, not recommended. Then there are people who are fit, but they have no high altitude experience. Again, I think they should have been to a certain level, maybe 5,000 meters, before attempting a mountain like Kilimanjaro. Uh, so I think these are some reasons I feel why one should climb or one should not climb this big mountain. Uh, when one should do it? Okay, this is the time period which I recommend: December to mid March and mid June to end of October. Mainly because the rest of the time it's actually the rainy season. So mid March to mid June, it rains quite a bit there, and November also. It in spurts it rains quite a bit. So it's good to sort of avoid those months and keep it within this period. If you're coupling it with let's say a safari, let's say you decide to go before or after uh, Kilimanjaro to a safari, I would recommend, and you want to catch the migration period. So I think around mid June to August is a good time to do that. You will you will be in the middle of the migration period there. Okay. How to do it? Obviously, I think one should be extremely fit. This is a big mountain. One, in terms of, one should have obviously checked up the medical and stuff like that. In fact, to travel also, there's certain vaccinations which are required, like yellow fever, which is required to travel to Africa, which needs to be done. And if you're coming via Kenya or staying sometime there, they check for polio vaccination as well. So one should, get that. I had mentioned this before. You should definitely have trekking and camping experience, because if you're going there and trekking for the first time uh, and camping for the first time, you will not be used to that kind of experience. You'll not be used to that kind of environment, and however fit you might be, it will affect your overall experience. I think you should have gone through that, because climbing Kilimanjaro is such an amazing experience which you'll remember through the rest of your life. It's an amazing experience. If you, while walking, enjoy it, absorb it while doing so, instead of, trying to fight off the various aspects which you are not used to. Again, in terms of packing list, you should be taking clothing and gears which you have tested before. So for example, obviously, your trekking shoes should be worn off. You should have worn them. You should have used your, down jackets, your fleece jackets, your sleeping bags, and so on and so forth, instead of, using brand new ones, opening, for the first time there and finding something is not working. So again, these should be tested before actually, going there. And when you're traveling there, you should account in buffer days. Obviously, you should land in Tanzania and not start climbing the next day. You should stay at least for a day, get a hang of things, and then take some rest and then go. And if you're crossing time zones, you should definitely take care of your jet lag, because I think sleep is very important while trekking, and you don't want to be jet lagged and not able to sleep in the night when you're there. It will affect your overall performance while walking. And which route to take? I'm going to talk more about the routes in the coming slides. Again, it depends on what duration it is, how scenic it is, how steep, and there are some routes which are very popular, and there are a lot of crowds there. So maybe you want to avoid that. So you may want to choose your routes accordingly. So these are the different routes. These are the 7 major routes which are there. There's Shira, Lemosho, Rongai, Machame, Umbe, Marango, Mweka. And these come from various directions for Kilimanjaro. Now, which route to take? I think that's a big question one has. We took, from my personal experience, we took Lemosho route in 2016, and I took Rongai route in 2018. Now, Lemosho route is actually a mix of Lemosho and Machame route. Machame route is also called the whiskey route. I don't know why it's called that. We didn't find any whiskey there, but anyways, this Machame is one of the most popular routes out there. And after a couple of days, we could see tons of people, on that route. But having said that, it's one of the very scenic routes which I found, mainly because I took the Rongai route the next time around. And it has, the way it is structured, it sort of helps you climb at an altitude very early on and then come down and you sleep at lower altitude. So it actually helps in acclimatization well. Basically, if you're following the principle of climb high, sleep low, which really helps in acclimatization. So that's what Machame/Lemosho route does to you, along with the amazing scenery it does. It also has a huge, I think on the 5th day, no, 4th day or 5th day, I forget. There's this huge wall called Barranco Wall. which is, I don't know, 100 meters to 200 meters steep. One has to actually scramble your way to the top. It's really scary for those who are sort of afraid of heights, because you're not roped. There's no protection. If you slip, you will fall. You'll fall down. But so you have to be extremely careful, and you scramble all the way, holding onto the rocks and whatever you have to sort of climb up. So this is one scary part, and it's so there's a lot of adrenaline rush also which happens depending what kind of a climber you are. So you might enjoy it. I enjoyed it very much actually. Rongai route, in fact, on the other hand, in 2018, was a very quiet route. So when I went back in 2018, I was expecting like a lot of crowds, what we saw in Lemoshu route, but this was almost empty, and it was nice in that way. And it was a very gradual route. It was not as steep as, let's say, a Machame route, Chame Lemoshu route, but it gradually, went all the way to the final camp, which was at typically 4,500 meters. And then, obviously, the summit night, one has to climb up to 1,000 meters. That goes for all the routes. So it was a very easy and very quiet and nice route. It didn't have the different features which I saw in the Lemoshu Machame route. But in Rohingya route, when you climb up, you basically cross the three high points of Kilimanjaro: the Gilman Point, Stella Point, and the Uhuru. Uhuru is the topmost point at 5,895 meters. In Lemoshu route, you bypass Gilman Point and you directly go to Stella Point and then go to Uhuru Point. So these are the different routes which are out there. Now, in this route, this Marangu route, which you see, which is the shortest route actually. A lot of people do that. I met one Polish guy during my first time. He attempted that and he successfully did that, but he was like so tired, and he said if he has to try that again, he will do some other route, not that. It's done in 5 days. So, and the success rate for this route is really, really low. Incidentally, Marangu route is the only route which has all the huts accommodation, whereas rest of the routes have mainly tents and camping accommodation. So these were the routes, and these are the 3 points which I just spoke to you about. The Gilman Point, which is basically, if you reach Gilman Point, which means that you have climbed Kilimanjaro. So you will get a certificate that you have climbed Kilimanjaro. This is at the edge of the rim of the crater. That's where the crater starts. The next point is Stella Point, below 5,750 meters. And the highest point is the Uhuru Peak, which is 5,895 meters. So these are the 3 points in Kilimanjaro at the crater where one could look at. Great. So I'm at the end of my presentation. I think what I'll do is show one video, a couple of videos, if that is fine, and then we'll quickly go to question and answers. Is that fine, Karthik?
Yeah, that's completely fine. I guess many are having questions and they're asking in the chat box, I guess.
Oops. Okay. Okay, let me quickly show a couple of videos. We'll give you these are some of the videos which I took myself, and some video which will give you bird's eye view of what to expect. Okay, let me just stop the sharing first. Okay. I'm going to play a small video which sort of shows, depicts a journey from start to the finish. It gives you a good bird's eye view. Then I'll show a couple of more videos at the top. Karthik, you can let me know if the volume is fine and all that.
Yeah, that's
Over
all
here.
fine. You can play. Yeah, I'll intimate you.
Sure. Can you see the VLC player?
No, I guess you have not presented your video. Right?
Wait.
Take your time, no issues. We have still time actually.
Let me know once you see the VLC player.
Yep. Yeah, it's on right now. I can see your
It's on?
playlist. Yeah, it's on.
All right. Okay. Okay.
I guess you can reduce your sound because it will be popping out very fast. It's better you reduce your sound and then play.
No, I have reduced it.
Oh, okay, fine. Then
In
carry
case it's still
on.
high, let me know and I'll reduce it.
Yeah, okay. It's not on. Yeah. It's not on, Hemant.
Sorry?
I can't see your video.
You can't see the video?
No, I can't see the video. Can you?
Okay.
Yeah, I guess the VLC is on, but the video is not playing. You just have to click the video.
Okay, just 1 sec. Okay, let me play it on YouTube then. Can you see the YouTube?
Yes, I can see the YouTube. But yeah, you can play it right now. I guess you have kept the. Yeah, I can see you have.
Yeah.
You can play
Okay.
it from the beginning. Actually, it's kept in the between in 33 seconds. Yeah.
Sure. Just a sec. Oops.
No, it's not yet connected actually. Or should I? You want me to play the video? Is it in YouTube?
No, it's playing, right?
No, it's not playing. It's not on actually.
It's not on?
Nope.
No?
No, it's not on.
Okay. Let me share this with you.
Okay.
Just sharing. Just hold on.
Yes. Okay.
You can play this.
1 second. Can you see my screen right now? Is everyone able to see my video? Even can you see my video
No, I can't.
right now?
No.
I guess you are presenting. Can you stop your presentation so that I can present it?
Yeah, just 1 sec. Yeah, you can try now.
You can see now? Can you see it?
Not yet.
Yes, there is something wrong. Okay, right now?
No.
Okay. Now?
Yeah.
Okay. Is the video, can you see the video?
Yes.
Okay. What about the audio is clear?
No.
Yes, we are able to see, but not the video. Yeah.
Can't hear though.
That was an amazing video, Hemant. Is that you on standing over there?
No, 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 not me. Great. So I think we can answer
Come to the
questions.
Q&A. I guess
Yes.
lots have asked.
I had other videos, but I don't think we have the time now. I will. So,
Deep. Yeah, Hemant, you can go on.
okay. So I had one last slide, which basically I'll just put it on. Something. Can you see the last slide?
Yes, I can see.
Yeah. So basically, if you're, what I'm trying to say here is that if you're trying to go to Kilimanjaro, there's a lot to do in and around East Africa, and these are some of the choices there. I haven't been to Uganda, Rwanda myself, but the other places which I've been to, obviously Safari, Serengeti, or Masai Mara, or Ngorongoro Crater in Tanzania, or even Zanzibar, we can dive, and it's a beautiful island off the Tanzanian coast. So there's a lot you can do. Obviously, there's gorilla safari you can do in Rwanda and Uganda. So these are the various things you can sort of combine with when we are going to go to Africa. It's a beautiful continent, very highly recommended. Great. So yeah, that's all from me. Thank you, all of you. I'll quickly, try to answer some questions which you have. Okay. So Somesh asks, December end is a good time for trek. Yes, absolutely. It's a very good time. It doesn't rain there. What are the toilet facilities there? Very good question. A lot of people have this question. It's a very well organized trekking routes rather. So a lot of people take their own toilet tents and mobile toilets, as well as there are toilets which are built up for the trekkers. So they are actually huts slash toilets which are sort of open and all that, slightly smelly and all that. But it's fine. But there are such facilities there at the camps, right? So along the way, you have to sort of use the natural facilities which are out there. How to charge for camera for 7 days? Please take your power banks with you. There's no electricity there. No signal also. Initial days you may get a signal here and there, but after that there's no signal out there. Any other questions? What is the cost? It depends which route, how many days. Typically 2.5 to 3,000 USD, I would say, or more. Just the trek cost for a 7-day kind of a thing, including 1 or 2 days. It's a 9 days total, around that much. Obviously, it doesn't include flight, visa, all those costs, but roughly around that much. Yeah. And are there mules? No, there are no mules. There are porters. So typically, there are a lot of porters and a lot of guides. So just to give you an idea of the first time we went, there were 5 of us, and there were 25 people supporting us. So overall, there were 30 of us. So everything is carried by the porters up and down the hill. So there's no mules, nothing.
Hemant, I have a question for you. What made you do the climb actually twice? Like, how was your experience during both the climbs? Was it the same? Was it different? Did you find anything different?
So I think, yeah, it was different, definitely. The first time I went for the first time in 2016, there were 5 of us, and I knew all the 5. They were friends from, we studied together, and it was one of the first rustic travel tours, trips to Kilimanjaro as well. There was a bit of an unknown which was there, but since I've been trekking and climbing for quite some time, I was well prepared for it. In fact, I had climbed one higher peak in Ladakh a couple of weeks ago before going to Kilimanjaro. So I was very well acclimatized. The second time around, I somewhat knew around what needs to be done while traveling to Tanzania and what are the things required, in terms of packing list, what to expect. For example, it gets really cold in the night, and while summiting in the night, it comes, there's a lot of wind, and the temperature drops to like minus 20 degrees or so. So one has to be prepared for that. So I was prepared the next time around, definitely. So next time I would say was much easier because I had done it, even though it was a different route and a bit easier route, but I was well prepared the next time around. Yeah.
Also, I have one more thing. Like, how was the altitude challenge for you when you went there during the different times of weather conditions? Was it very hard, or were you able to acclimatize when you went for the higher altitude?
So personally, both the times I was in Ladakh the previous month. So I had climbed peaks higher than Kilimanjaro in Ladakh both the times. So I was very well acclimatized. But the team, obviously, they were coming not at lower altitudes. So they had some sort of problem with acclimatization. Some people acclimatize better than the others. In my first group, nobody took any medicines. One one friend had to leave midway because he was not well acclimatized. Though he was extremely fit, but he had to leave midway. In the second time, there were 12 of us. There were a couple of them who were strong trekkers, but they had some acclimatization problems. But all of them reached the top. So it depends on person to person. And during the obviously, it's about climbing high, sleeping low, drinking a lot of water, having the good diet. So we do all that, walking slow. So you follow the certain principles of acclimatizing to high altitude while doing that. Yeah.
I hope I'll be joining you next time. Once everything is this pandemic gets over, I guess I'll be definitely
Right.
joining you.
Right. Any other questions, anyone? Any tour planner company? Maybe you can get in touch with me. I mean, we organize this regularly. So you can. My email ID is hemant@rustictravel. Or you have you know how to reach out to me. I will tell you all the details. Amran, the fastest ascent is 6 hours, right? Hours,
Yeah,
not days. Hours.
it's ours, not days.
Uh,
So thank you, Hemant, for this wonderful session. I guess everyone has got a rough idea on how to do a Kilimanjaro, and they can reach out to you at any time. And once everything is back to normal, I hope everyone will be reaching out to you, and I hope one day I can also trek with you for the same.
yeah, and I would like to say, even though I've been there 2 times, I don't mind going back there again. It's such a wonderful experience. Seriously,
I
I love Africa. I mean, and surely because of the experience I've had with Kilimanjaro. The people are amazing there. Seriously, beautiful people.
so I guess thank you all, and I hope everyone has got a rough idea about it. So thank you, Hemant. I'll get back to you for the same, and I'll share the video recording as well. I have recorded it. I'll share it to
Great.
you by the end of the day. Is that okay?
Yes, yes, that's fine. All right. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.